filmmakers and photographers, drinking coffee and talking shit.
Welcome to Filmmakers and Photographers Drinking Coffee and Talking Shit. In this podcast, you'll hear insights and stories from four guys and maybe an occasional guest who have all come to the craft of visual media from very different starting points. I'm your host, Matt Rickman.
And with him, as always, is Sean Letty.
And Randy Fitzenmeyer.
And Chris Bell.
In this episode, we're going to talk about what does 2019 look like for business, technology, personally. We'll make some bold predictions and hopefully make fools of ourselves. We'll drink a little bit of coffee and talk a little bit of shit. Sean, what does 2019 look like? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, man. I don't know. I know it's going to change a lot for us personally at work. In the filmmaking and photography space, I think one of the cool things about this field is that it doesn't change that much, right? I mean, there's always a new gadget or something like that, but the discipline of making a film, telling a story, has remained fairly consistent, through the ages, if you will. So, I mean, that's something I think hopefully will stay that way, is that we keep having the basics there. Tech will change a little bit. Cameras will come down in price and image quality will get better and 4K will start to become even more and more prevalent. For me personally, probably doing more actual photography. I've been ramping that up a little bit, on my side hustle. And I hope that we get to work together as much as we have the last couple of years, and hopefully we have some projects that we're really, really proud of and excited to show people after this year.
Randy?
Yeah, Randy.
Well, I think 2019, I'm actually engaged now, and in 2019, with any luck, it may happen, so... I may be a married man.
Divorce? Or what?
And who's photographing your wedding? That's what I want to know. Yeah, who's that?
Hopefully nobody.
You're not doing your own wedding, right?
Hopefully nobody.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. What about for our business, like for photography or filmmaking or...
I agree with Sean. I think the basics still continue on and stay the same, and all this high-tech stuff and 8K and this, and I mean... We hardly anything's even broadcast in 1080p. I mean, and they've been saying that for years.
What's broadcast?
Right? Yeah. What's going to happen to broadcast?
Hopefully it dies.
Or the whole VR scene. I don't know about that. If that's ever going to completely take on.
Yeah.
Or
Chris,
take off.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer, since like Lumiere brothers in France in when they started dabbling with film.
What were those guys like?
They were great because, they would come over for dinner on Thursdays and they would bring French bread and wine and have all kinds of great stories. I couldn't understand them.
You guys should have done a podcast.
I know, we should have. But no, I think that's the core thing, storytellers, that's not going to change. But as far as business-wise, I mean, I think our economy is just cranking along. I mean, I've never been this busy in December, and we're not even in December yet.
Yeah.
So I think business is very good. I mean, it obviously depends on your clientele. Who are you working for? But I think if you're working for any kind of country or company that does work in multiple states and especially globally, business is good. So I think this coming year, I think, is going to have all kinds of opportunities for people getting into this industry. Lots more competition, but a lot more work to go around.
What do you think, Matt?
I don't know. It's hard to know whether my worldview is everyone else's worldview, but
it's not.
It's not. That's probably a good thing. No, I just, the era of YouTube and, Randy mentioned broadcast and that's just such a foreign thing for me. I don't watch TV. I don't change channels. I cut the cord 10 plus years ago.
I
on
cut
that
the
kind of
cord
stuff.
last month.
Yeah, cheers to that.
George.
That's a good thing. It's interesting. I think that there's still people that tune in on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. to watch television, but I think that's so rare anymore. I think it's going to be interesting to see Apple enter the content game. If they are, we know that's a pretty safe bet. I think it's interesting how people are consuming content now. We all binge watch things, so much more content needs to be created.
But what do you think about the quality of the content?
I think it's better than ever.
Yeah,
With
it's
volume,
You've got these.
you would think quality would go down, but
Yeah.
Well, I think, as you said, that's where the market is now.
Yeah.
So now you've got A-list actors that would have never, touched anything for television, and now you see them on Netflix.
right?
Yeah.
Let alone Netflix.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prime.
Adam
original
Sandler's
or
new
whatever.
comedy special is exclusively on Netflix.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a testament to the change that's
Yes.
coming, right?
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more of that. I mean, I think we're going to see more content that's created by creators on YouTube start to boil up into Netflix stuff. That might be not be a 2019 prediction. That might take a little bit longer, but I think we're going to start seeing that. I mean, when you've got guys like Casey Neistat that can put out a video and within 24 hours get millions of views, that's interesting. That's interesting.
exciting.
It's going to shape. It's going to change content the way it's created, and that's why for me personally, what 2019 is going to bring is I'm heading full steam ahead down the path of being a content creator, not as part of my job when people need content created and I create it for them, but creating my own content. I mean, that's my future. That's 5 years out. That's what I'll be doing full time, hopefully. And I just think we're going to see more and more of that. And I think we're at this tipping point with, television of old just hopefully dying off. Netflix productions and Amazon and, Apple's going to get into fray. We're going to see so much incredible content that's going to come out of this because competition is stiff and expectations are extremely high.
And it's a lot easier. The playing field has been leveled essentially for so many creative people that would have never ever had the opportunity to get in the game. Can now
Absolutely.
get in the
I
game
mean,
for relatively no money compared to what it used to be, and get seen potentially. At least they have a shot and an opportunity, and then can grow from there.
Well, and they have multiple opportunities, right? I mean, Chris, in your world, a client would hire you to make one video and it lives on their page for a long time. And now with that need for continuous content, and we see this a lot because we provide marketing services for people, and video is now more than ever a marketing tool. Yep. It's not just one video that you need. You need regular, consistent delivery of content to an audience to keep them engaged and keep them coming back, because if not, they'll find somewhere else to get that.
But this is a question for Chris. Since they want more volume now, I see lower budgets, but yet you're making it up on volume, shooting more often. What do you think?
I'm not seeing lower budgets, thank God.
But
I'm
with
seeing
the volume.
five programs for everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
You may have something that could be training related
Mm-hmm.
or installation related. You have a marketing program. You have an Instagram version. You might have a Facebook version.
Mm-hmm.
But that's of the same piece of content that you're making.
So when you go out and you do a project, you're not focused on, okay, so we're just doing a marketing program here.
right.
You're focused on something much broader. You're going out there to capture more B-roll, more visuals that would support multiple use programs.
And maybe it is less applicable to your business model, where it's a little bit higher end production, but it definitely rings true for the guy we were talking about in the last episode, the run and gun guy, or people who are not professional filmmakers are now entering the game and learning, because they have so many resources online, learning how to create their own content, pump it out regularly. And now it's like, well, gosh, that person has just as much editing experience as the guy in the high-end shop, because they're editing every single day, and they're editing all sorts of stuff, and they're delivering it fast on YouTube or wherever. So it'd be interesting to see how that that goes into those bigger shops. You know, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, we want to do a video every single week, you know, for the rest of the year," how do you price that? How do you plan to produce it? Do you shoot a bunch of it at once and then edit it out? You know,
That's the trend of more people having in-house again.
Right. I mean, you know, or if you're an editor, your job may not be to work in a shop or on your own. You may be working for a YouTuber. They may be sending you footage, and you have a solid gig cranking out every night. You're doing another episode or another clip for them.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, more and more. That's happening. So yeah, there's a prediction, I guess, for 2019.
Yeah,
That's
for
a bold,
sure.
good one.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make a bold prediction that won't come true: is Apple buys Netflix. There we go.
Ooh.
Shazam.
Do you think
Shazam.
Netflix ever buys Apple? Never, right?
No, they don't have the pockets for
But
that.
I mean, does Netflix come out with a device that lets you watch TV anywhere? Maybe it's like a mobile phone, but instead of making calls, it has good Wi-Fi chip in it, a nice screen, and it's dedicated for watching TV. I mean, granted, you'd say
people are gonna
why
do that
because
on
you
your
could do
phone
that on your
anyway.
phone anyway. But
Yeah.
but I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe that's a crazy thing is that content producers say, "Why don't we have a device? Everyone else has one." You know, that could happen too. You've seen it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into coolest shit that we've seen. I'll jump in first. So mine, I'm going to totally rob this from a project Sean did. And I won't go too deep in this because this phrase strays a little bit from our core topic. But we recently had a motion graphics video created for a website that we did. And it was all illustrated. And so I was pushing the team, and mostly Sean, that there's got to be a way that this can be vector online. You know, we do things with SVG animation and, you know, there's GIF animations and stuff like that. And I was like, there's got to be a way. And so my core web developer on the team went down one path with a tool that worked pretty damn good. And Sean went down a path of having this thing created, and we were going to deliver it, you know, as like a traditional video background on a website. And just happened to mention it. Sean, correct me if I'm telling the story wrong, but just happened to mention it to our motion graphics artist, what we were trying to do. And he's like, "Oh man, no, we can do this." And it's this thing. It's called a .json. JSON
I've heard of that.
file. And I don't know, the damn thing's magic. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's vector.
We've been having some issues with it, but essentially, and I learned a lot more about it today by trying to troubleshoot some of these issues. Essentially, what it is, it's a code language that was developed by, get this, Airbnb. Developed this file type, this code language called Lottie, that works with a pre-existing code structure called the JSON, right? That it basically works Android, iOS, and on web browsers to use existing technology. Look, we can see
My mom's
we can see
on.
comments.
Hi,
That's cool. Hi, Matt's mom. You know, it redraws the animations. It in some way in code. And basically you need a plugin for After Effects. So you build your animations as you would, and there's some restrictions, but not many that it can handle. And then it converts your keyframes and your shapes and stuff like that into. It recreates them in a way that the browser or phone can understand, and so you're not even getting like the original artwork. It's recreating all the artwork in code. So one of the things we found as a struggle was that if it's too big, it just won't load. So we're working through that right now because this is really designed, and as the SVG animation tool we looked at as well, web is not really ready for a long length video animation to be handled in code. They're looking at these things as maybe a loader, you know, like a page loader animation that you want to be super slick, maybe hover or rollover effects that happen. They're short. And they communicate one thing. In our instance, it's a number of scenes. This thing happens, you know, across a number of different scenes. So because the length was almost a minute long as opposed to 10 seconds or 15 seconds, it's a 3 megabyte file, which doesn't sound big, but in code, that's a lot of code for a page to load and read. So,
Does it just jam, or is there a bunch of latency?
So right now, what we have is we have it playing. We have it in an iframe that is being relayed from a site that is used to preview these JSON Lottie files. And so the site that we have uploaded it on is doing all the work for us, and it's spitting it out on our end. But the downside to that is that because we don't control the instance of the animation, on that site, if that were to come down or expire and they say, okay, your trial's up or whatever, and this preview is no longer valid, sure, we could re-upload it, get a new instance, put it in there. But if that breaks, then all of a sudden our animation is no longer working on our site. So we wanted to implement it on our end where we know it's there, it's live, it's working. And so we installed a plugin called Body Movin' to our WordPress site. And then with that, you're supposed to be able to load in your JSON file, and it creates some short code that you then put into your WordPress page, and voila, your animation's supposed to play. Well, when we go to load in the JSON file, because of the size, like I said, 3 megs doesn't sound like a lot in actual download file size or whatever, but for code, it's quite big. It literally just will not load it. It gets to a certain point and says, nope, I can't do this. So right now we're troubleshooting how to shrink it down and get it, but it's very cool because it can.
Yeah,
it's
super cool.
super
And
slick animation.
Didn't Flash do that? Wasn't Flash vector-based delivery of? I mean, you had to have the Flash plug-in on your computer, but I mean,
yeah,
that's what Flash
it
was.
Probably did. Yeah, it probably did a lot of that.
HTML5, but
Yeah.
Flash still exists.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
actually,
It
well,
does?
not anymore. Adobe finally killed it. Killed it.
No, it's just called a different name. But
Oh yeah. So that's cool shit, though.
It's very
and I
cool.
think a lot of times the limitation is just that a lot of that stuff is rendered user side as opposed to server side, and so you know people that go out and buy $300 fucking computers can't handle this kind of stuff. Randy, got any cool shit?
I'm working on a project now that I'm in the process of learning about, but it's a custom video where we shot it in a way that all the After Effects files that will be built to go on a phone screen or a television screen or a custom 3D sign made on a wall, we will provide all that to this company that does all the programming, and they spit out 500 videos. Each one will be customized to the person that they send it to instantaneously.
Very cool.
So that's going to be cool. It's going to be fun to learn about.
Yeah,
But
nice.
I think it's just a bunch of coders in a room,
yeah, coders. They're the worst. Chris, how about you, man?
Yeah, gearhead junkie that I am, especially when you get into lenses. Sigma is now producing cinema lenses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yes, they happen pretty nice.
they're
ones.
beautiful lenses. At least they look beautiful to me, and they've got fantastic optics. Sorry. So, I mean, I am anxious to try one of these out. They're relatively low cost. They're thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But in
I
the
mean,
scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to
A $20,000 Cook lens.
yeah,
You know.
well, let's not even go that high. A Zeiss lens, similar quality, but they're T2, which means they're very low light and big pieces of glass, which I always love to see that.
But,
That always
and
means-
nice long focus throws and
Exactly, all the stuff because as we
Gears.
know, yes, gears in them. But when you're out shooting with still camera lenses, your focus throw is very shallow. I mean, to go from here to there, it's like dink, it's 1 centimeter.
and breathing and
But
all
a
that
cinema
good
lens
stuff.
is not, you wonder how these people get these beautiful rack focus type shots and stuff. Well, more than likely, unless they happen to have an older still lens that would allow them to do that, they're using a cinema lens.
Explain to someone like me who is not as familiar with the difference between these two lenses, what makes a cinema lens different than a traditional camera lens?
They're often built much better.
They're
Okay.
precise.
Yeah, they're very precise. So they're built to take abuse because they know these things are going to be anywhere from in a studio setting to the plains of Africa. They're sealed up.
Temperature conditions.
Temperature conditions, dust conditions, all that kind of stuff. But the really cool stuff is, like I said, is the focus throw. So instead of just like 1 centimeter from going from some kind of distance, it's a
quarter turn or
quarter
a half
turn
a
or
turn
something.
or something.
So you get this
Oh.
beautiful focus throw from here to there that's very organic, and it's what we're used to seeing all these years.
Or breathing. Talking about breathing. of the
Breathing as
lens.
well is very important.
What does that mean?
That means if I am zooming in on you, I might see a change of the optics around you,
Okay.
and a change of focus. I might, as I'm changing focus, the lens might also zoom in on you a little bit, or zoom out depending on which
The
way I'm
framing
going.
will
Oh,
change.
try this,
Yeah.
Sean. Try this with your camera. Put your 85 on, and then focus on something really near, and take a picture, and then focus on something really far, and take
It's a
picture.
prime, so I
And-
can't.
and you can change focus. We're just talking focus
Okay,
here,
okay,
and
okay.
watch
Yeah, I guess not
watch
zoom,
how
right.
the image, the framing, actually changes on a prime lens. That's
Okay,
what he's
okay.
talking
And,
about.
and then there's
Okay.
another thing where with the zoom lens, where a true cinema lens, you can zoom in and focus, and then zoom back out, and it'll stay in
It's
focus.
called parafocus.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
and on a still lens, like on an SLR, that's not
You
happening.
can't
Yeah.
do that. Interesting.
And it takes a lot of glass, which is why these lenses are bigger. They're heavy, and they're expensive.
These weigh as much as the camera.
And
Yeah,
so,
and
how?
cost more.
Why would somebody? Is there? I mean, are you only getting into cinema lenses when you're really doing some high-end video work,
Yes,
or would
yeah.
you say, hey,
You have to
I
wear
have a
That's
Well,
a
decent-
whole nother
decent
discussion.
DSLR, and I'm going to get a cinema lens for it. I mean, like, why
people
would
do.
somebody make that?
Well, it's like a
distinction?
professional tool. It's like as you gain your craft and and get the clients that you've always dreamed of having and things like that.
That's us, Sean. For
That's
him,
you guys, and absolutely, because we'll be using this on every one of your guys' projects.
Great.
But it's you're going to get a little bit better tool.
Yeah.
For your job. It's I.
So for me, it's like once I finally started figuring out like how to make a good espresso, I realized, Grad, this machine's just not going to cut it. I need the better
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Or why
Absolutely.
Chris has been in business as long as he has is, he doesn't make dumb decisions. He makes a decision where I'm going to have an ROI on this piece of equipment within a certain amount of time, or I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, and the ROI on this kind of stuff, the reason why this is so sexy for me is so freaking boring and straightforward. It's because they're not that expensive, relatively.
No.
I mean, they're a lot more expensive than a DSLR or still camera lens. But I mean, this lens alone here, I think, is around $4,000.
Compared to the
You
Fuji,
could, which
like-
seems like a lot, but to get into that kind of caliber lens, you would have to spend 2 to 3 times that amount.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got Zeiss and you got all these other people going, whoa, what are you guys doing over there?
Yeah. How
Well,
is it only?
and
$4,000,
they're
some of
gonna-
these
right?
lenses are still lenses rehoused. So the glass and the elements are all the same,
Yeah.
but they're rehoused in metal housings, changing the focus throw. And also, an f-stop and a t-stop of a cinema lens are 2 different things. A lot
Absolutely.
of people don't.
Yeah,
realize.
absolutely.
I've got a lot to learn.
You do. Yeah.
absolutely. But this is why, you guys have heard me evangelize Fuji. Fuji's making cinema lenses for their X series cameras. I mean, I think that's a bold statement from Fuji saying that, the
And for all
XH1
video cameras, they make fantastic lenses.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
they're making them for their, their mirrorless, like the XH1 and the XT3 and that. That's just another reason why I love Fuji.
Yes.
And they're not, they're not as expensive either. I mean, they're still in
Yeah.
the, $5,000, $4,000 range, which is a lot,
Right.
but it's not at the same time.
Yeah, I've been looking at the Fujinon lenses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, sexy.
Yeah. Cool. Let's switch over to geeky tech shit. So a couple episodes ago, we started talking about mobile, and I mentioned that I had ordered the newest iPad Pro. I finally have it in front of me. I've been using it for a while. I actually tried to use it to edit the last couple versions of this podcast. That'll be the one fail I've had so far. I trying to find a really solid app for professional uses is, I think, the weakness right now in the system. Adobe doesn't make an audio editing app that runs on iOS. So there's some third-party apps out there, and they're hit or miss, or there's really expensive ones that you really can't test out until, you spend $40 or $50 on them, and I didn't quite want to do that. So I was trying to edit this podcast using the tools I had, which was LumaFusion. And trying to sync audio in LumaFusion was a manual process, a painful manual process. Episode 4, I edited on the iPad, and our audio, we record on 2 separate Zoom recorders, so we've got 2 audio tracks, 2 stereo audio tracks. We've got to sync them up, and I just couldn't get them in perfect sync. I got them really close, but there was just this reverb sound, and it was I was almost ready to publish it. I mean, it was close, and I finally said, God damn it, I just can't live with
You
this.
could just be in a big space.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. It
Yeah.
sounded like we were in a big space, and I knew we weren't, and it bothered me. So I hopped on my Mac. We use Premiere to edit these because Audition, stupid program like we've discussed before, can't synchronize audio tracks, but Premiere can.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally loaded it into Premiere. I loaded the video from our Mevo, and within 2 minutes, I had this cut and synced, and I was outputting
I love
the
me some
file
Premiere,
versus
man.
spending
Yeah.
you know
I really
a
do.
couple hours. So that's a fail. I do really feel like though the mobile filmmaking and in the field, you know, being able to edit stuff has its place. It is the future. I'm tired of carrying around a 15-inch MacBook Pro, just stupid big. I won't do it anymore. So I'm going to use my iPad Pro still for 90% of my work. It's not ready to replace your desktop. You know, it's a tool to augment. But that's my update on mobile. Absolutely love the device though. It's expensive, but it's so nice.
It's
and
interesting, you know, and I don't know, has Apple done this before, but like the body form of this iPad.
It's like the original iPad.
Well, it looks like, no, the original iPad was like curved.
Nope.
And well, what I will say is this, it looks like the iPhone 4. It's got that.
Yeah, it looks like an iPhone 5S or 4.
The flat edge. You know what
like
I'm
the
saying?
4 and the 5 were like that.
Yeah, in that body form, it's like now this is a brand new flagship device, but they've kind of almost
looks
gone
older,
back to an
yeah.
older body style with it. It is really sexy.
What about
looking and-
the pen and the screen? Does it work as good as a Wacom tablet?
It works better, in my
Okay.
opinion. I would never buy a
Awesome.
Wacom tablet anymore.
Awesome.
I would absolutely use this. The pen is amazing to edit with.
Could you use the pen and the interface in conjunction with like your computer as a Wacom tablet?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an app. It's called Air Stylus, but that basically, yeah, you can do that hooked up to your Mac. You can kind of work them, you know, together.
Can
with
you
your Mac.
input a video signal to it and use it as a monitor from a camera?
No, I don't think so. I think the USB is only output for those sorts of things or for like importing files. That brings me to the second big kind of fail is that right now file management, moving files on and off is really difficult. Getting photos and video onto an iPad Pro is pretty easy. But for example, like moving the audio files, like if I were to pop the little SD card out of the Zoom recorder and then use my SD card to USB-C adapter on the iPad and put the SD card in, the iPad would just sit there and say, fuck off. You can't do anything. Now, if I stuck if there was photos or videos on that card, it would work. It would work just fine. So there's some workarounds. There's some things that you have to do. And that sort of thing, but it's not ready to completely replace it. But I love that. I mean, this device scores. It's just as fast, or 98% as fast as Sean's new MacBook Pro that we just ordered for him. That was like $4,000. So it's fast. It's got the internals. It's a super fast system. It's portable. It's just
They're just crippling
Well,
it on
when
purpose
we-
because of their other product lineups.
We talked about the future of content creators making content all the time, cranking things out, every couple of days or every week they have a new video out. And when we were at Adobe Max, they came out with Adobe Rush, right, which was kind of like their mobile version of Premiere, if you will. Has built-in titlers, transition effects, and it's designed to basically, you're shooting scene by scene by scene on your iPad or on a camera to an iPad or in the cloud. So, this tool is what those people are going to be using. And I think that's what the application is, right? Is like mobile editing on the go. It's for that person who's creating content fast, quickly. They're getting it out. They want to edit on the train home or whatever. Maybe not so much, people who are doing the longer form, higher end type stuff. That's not to say you couldn't do that. I mean, we're all proponents of use whatever tool you have. You could shoot an entire movie on an iPhone if you wanted to. You could edit an entire movie on an iPhone.
They've done that.
They've done it, right? So, but I do think that, where the future is going with all these content creators having to consistently deliver new, fresh content day in and day out, you're going to start to see a lot more people move away from, in that space, right? Move away from Premiere and the desktop and towards something like an iPad with Adobe Rush.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a tool that's going to augment, you're going to work remotely on an iPad and then come back to your desk for, for finishing and things like that. And I'm super intrigued by it. The other thing I like about it too, for me, is that it, with Premiere or After Effects, God, you can do anything. And that means that you can do anything. And with this, actually having the built-in limitations of like, I can only do, this thing. I can't do motion graphics on it. I can only edit with 3 tracks of video and 3 tracks of audio. It's actually kind of liberating to have those guardrails that like, it comes down to just pure like content and ideas and storytelling and not like, Premiere and After Effects motion graphic shit and all that. So that part's kind of nice too. But yeah.
Cool.
Chris?
Mobile apps?
Yeah, do you use anything mobile?
Well, for business I do. I use kind of the project management tool, Insightly.
Insightly?
Insightly,
Okay.
yeah. It's customer relation management.
Uh-huh.
So you can track where you're at, what's going on, what's your deliverables, what's your tasks, all that kind of stuff. I have used time-lapse apps. I think I mentioned that in a previous episode. That's been very helpful because especially when you're out trying to figure stuff out, you could, if you got some math balls, you could probably figure it out. But then having your phone figure it out and knowing it's correct, it's a load off your mind.
Yeah.
Definitely, I marvel at the stuff that you guys do, especially with the iPad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm.
Well, let's face it, time lapse is a beer drinking sport, and so the more beers you can have and not think about math, the better.
Well said. Yeah, especially when you got an app that you can offload that onto. But yeah, I don't know the app stuff. I scratch my head and I'm waiting to see, where it's going. Where is the, for me, the really compelling stuff. I think the most interesting stuff I've seen on mobile is Lightroom on your phone, your iPhone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was very cool.
Yeah.
And that I could go, yeah, that's something I could get into.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're limited with what you can do on there.
You are. I mean, it's not an exact copy of Lightroom on the desktop, but it's pretty damn close. And I will routinely take photos into Lightroom on my phone to prep them for going into Instagram or something like that. I mean, these phones will shoot raw images, so you get a better image, you get more latitude. There's a lot more you can do to make up for the image, and so I will use Lightroom for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sean, what do you do with your phone, mobile?
Look
when
at
no one's looking.
A lot of no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things I've done. I mean, one, the last shoot that I was on, you guys were with me in Vegas, right?
Yep.
I used the Ronin app to balance the Ronin S, and to make sure that was locked in solid. And again, it's having that technical confirmation that you've done it right. No guessing. Because, I mean, how many times have you gotten back and been like, oh, my God, what is that little balance or that little shake? I must not have balanced it right. Having the technical confirmation is nice. The other thing I've done, and this is just real simple, it's nothing pro, it's nothing fancy, but, the camera remote on my Apple Watch, I have, we do a lot of family stuff every holiday or birthday or anniversary, and my wife's family, everybody's there and they always want to take a family picture. Yeah. And how many times have I been the hero where I can set the phone with my little pop socket on the counter across the room and I have it right there on my watch and I go 1, 2, 3. We all smile, and it just having the ability to do some stuff like that, it comes in handy when you least expect it. Over the Thanksgiving break, my dad was in town. Hey, Dad, what's up? Hope you're watching. My dad was in town, and him, my father-in-law, and myself all went up to Rocky Mountain National Park for the day. And we wanted to take a picture of the three of us, but we didn't want this selfie where all our heads are blocking the gorgeous views. We wanted a shot where you could see all the mountains and Bear Lake, and so again, the remote feature on my iWatch came in such handy because I could just set my phone on the hood of the car with a little pop socket stand there. And boom, we had this gorgeous picture. And my wife said, well, who took that for you? I said, I took it. Yeah, right. And it was just cool. So, whether it's balancing gear or getting a technical confirmation for something that you don't want to guess on, or just little life hacks for being able to take a picture of people when you don't have someone there to do it for you. It's cool stuff, man.
But your phone it's always chiming you when you get a message, you get an email or whatever else.
I can turn that off.
No, mine hasn't. Yeah, you will never hear my phone start ringing as we record a podcast. I've got mine shut off, man. I don't let it make any sounds. I go to it when I need information. I don't let it
go to
tap
you,
me
rule
on
you.
the shoulder. So
Yeah, because I've seen people that are always like, ding, and they're looking at their iWatch,
Notifications give me anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because I remember, I don't know if it was when I was starting here or maybe it was at the agency I worked at before this, but when you have email on your phone and you don't want to be reminded that you have a job on the nights or the weekends or whatever, you know, and you hear that one sound that you've designated as the email sound and you hear it, you get these waves of like anxiety. You're like, oh God, I hope that's not that person or whatever.
Yeah,
I just shut that stuff off. I shut that shit off.
That's good.
You know, because I'll go in, especially on vacation or something.
that explains why I can't ever get a hold of you. But
well, hey,
yeah, absolutely,
that's a good thing.
Let's talk coffee for a moment, Sean. Sean's Coffee Corner. What do you have in your corner today?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I've been such an espresso guy for so long, just because obviously there's an art form to latte art.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tasty way to do coffee. I mean, espresso by itself is its own beast, but you add the sweetness of steamed milk, and boy, is it a treat. It really brings out a whole nother angle of the flavors. But sometimes you don't want to go through the hassle of making an espresso and dialing in your grind and steaming the milk just right. So I actually have been kind of, and you were talking about maybe getting a French press or a Chemex or something like that. I just have wanted to learn a little bit more about like pour over and drip, and because there's a science and an art to that as well. And some of these guys get really scientific, if you will, about how much water and the temperature and how how long it should take to steep and brew,
off-gassing and
all of these things. Yeah. So I think for me, that's something I'm gonna just start looking into as another way to do it, because just like anything else, we talked in the last episode about don't go down a rabbit hole if it's what you're passionate about, but don't be afraid to dabble in new things and try new things, because I do think there's probably some more territory to be explored with coffee and tasting and finessing those flavors by changing how you prepare it and extract it. So who knows? Maybe I'll start getting into some pour over or something like that.
Sweet. Figure that out and then teach me.
I will. Yeah.
I love that.
Hey,
idea.
man,
Well, figure that out and bring in some.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Hell
the other
yeah.
thing is that it's hard to bring in my 70-pound espresso machine, that's filled with copper boilers and stuff.
Randy could grab it. He'd love to carry that.
Oh yeah, well you're used to carrying 70-pound cameras, so,
Exactly.
and lenses. But no, and that's the other thing is that's the kind of setup you can really bring with you in a little pouch. You could bring that kind of stuff with you and take it on a trip. We always talk about how when we travel, it's hard to find really good coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
So. So that's something that might be brewing for me.
I love that.
Up in the new year, Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, copywriter too.
So here's a question for Randy and Chris. And I guess first before I jump into this, I'll tell my quick little coffee thing. And I hope I haven't mentioned this on a previous episode, but the other day I had a fresh brewed cup of coffee in front of me, and I had a little bit of butter sitting next to it from something else. And I cut off some of that butter and I dropped it in the coffee and I stirred it up, and that was one of the most amazing coffee drinks I've ever had. So I would encourage anybody to try that. It's got to be real butter. But butter in coffee is creamy and it's yummy. It's no different than putting milk in coffee,
but
my man.
See, I guess, and I'm one of these guys, so, kudos to my wife for putting up with all my crap. I love you, honey. But the other day, I've never really done strawberry peanut butter and jelly. I've only ever done grape peanut butter and jelly. I can do strawberry jam on toast. Right. Yeah. But there's something about the common, I know I'm a weird guy, right? I didn't eat gravy on my turkey till I was 20. So, but I mean, for real, there are certain things that just don't sound good, You know, now granted, the other day we were out of grape jelly, and I was like, "Oh my
And you're
god, I want
desperate.
to make a sandwich, but we don't have any grape jelly, honey." You know, and she's like, "Just put the strawberry on," and I was like, "All right, I'll try it." It was really good.
pretty
So
good, isn't it?
I had to open myself up to that, and so far, what Matt has told me sounds completely disgusting. and
That's what
gross.
I thought, too,
I
but-
don't need more butter in my
try
life.
it.
I
Hey,
probably already
everything
have.
is good with butter.
Absolutely.
I can't think of
But
anything.
you're right. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
that-
like
the logic is there.
Actually,
The
it's a new
logic is
thing,
there.
and they add protein to it, and it makes you so you're not hungry. And to eat
Absolutely.
breakfast.
Well,
Yeah,
and then they've also added
absolutely.
CBD
It's a
to
new
coffee,
diet
which does
fad.
make you hungry.
Shit. Yeah.
Not me.
Okay. Well, last question, and then we'll wrap this up. You guys are both on death row, and you get to order
You are?
your last coffee drink ever that you'll have in your life. Chris, what do you order?
I would probably order a Belgium Saison with a shot of espresso. Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Randy?
Yeah.
Coffee or anything.
Coffee. Chris.
Yeah, you've
perverted
already
the
been able
rules.
to order
what I
anything
thought.
else. The booze,
Yeah.
they
I,
gave you a whole
coffee.
other
I would
category to
say-
pick for that.
A large quadruple shot Mexican mocha.
All right. Yeah. Well, with that, we can't improve on that. Let's end this thing. Listen, guys, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you, talk about our craft, and drink some coffee. For those of you brave enough to listen to this podcast, please make sure you've subscribed on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with your friends and colleagues and go out and make something. On the next episode, we're going to talk about crazy clients, crazy projects, crazy productions, crazy coffee. Until next time.
Filmmakers and photographers